What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and today we're going to get into the we're going to get into the NFL. Yes, I know, we're going to talk about the NFL. I know some of you guys don't like the NFL, but listen, there's a lot of things happening, and there's some things that I need to talk about, so we're going to get into the NFL. All right, if it's your first time here, glad to have you. If you're a return viewer, thanks for coming back, and thanks for watching more videos. And if you haven't yet, well, you know what I'm going to say, so I'm not even going to say it. But remember to leave me those comments down in the comment section. You know that I love to interact with you guys down there. Now, let's go ahead and let's start things off with over the weekend. The Dallas Cowboys shocked everybody, and they signed Andy Dalton. What do I think of this? Well, being a Cowboys fan, as you can see my Cowboys helmet in the background, I actually think that this is a fairly decent hire. I think that it's a great deal for them. They're getting him actually probably on the cheap. Now, granted, it is a 1-year deal. So, you know, it is what it is. Listen, the guy's a former Pro Bowler. He's led some teams to the postseason. Granted, hasn't won a postseason game. So you have that with him. However, you have a guy who has a lot of experience and could be a fail-safe. Now, is this something where I'm thinking that, Dak Prescott's going to be worried that Jerry Jones is bringing in Andy Dalton and that Andy Dalton's not going to take his starting job? I don't necessarily think that this is the case. I think that Jerry Jones, saw the value in Andy Dalton. And listen, Andy Dalton is a Texas boy. He's a boy that went to TCU. He's from the area. He's got a house in the area. It just makes sense. And if you know anything about Jerry Jones, you know that, he likes his Dallas boys. His boys from, his hometown boys. And listen, he's a hometown boy, and I think that's going to be great. And the other thing is that really, the Bengals have not been that good around him. Now, granted, he hasn't been good the past couple seasons, but who knows? We'll see. They ended up getting a couple wins under him at the end of the last season, and Andy Dalton isn't that bad. And if I'm looking at it from the perspective of him as my backup quarterback, I'm actually feeling pretty decent. You show me another quarterback as a backup quarterback in the league, I don't know offhand if you could really name more than on one hand, more than 5 guys that might be better, that you could make an argument with that. So with looking at the Andy Dalton thing, I'm okay with it. The whole Dak Prescott thing is listen, a lot of people are out there, they need to get this deal done and they need to do this and they need to do that. Jerry Jones has done what he needs to do. Listen, we've got a lot of time before July, before they really need to crank this up. And right now, with the landscape the way that it is and with the world the way that it is right now that we keep talking about, and you know why we keep talking about it the way that we do, it is just uncertain. And for them to just go out and try to get this deal done and not having any certainty of what's coming up in the future makes sense for them just to be sitting on the stuff with Dak Prescott. And the other thing with it is that nobody's talking about is that they put a franchise tag on him. He has a contract out there to be signed and sitting for him if he wants it. He wants to negotiate. He wants more money. Do I think that he's worth more money? No. He has not risen when it is the time for the quarterback to step up and do his job and for him to win games. And to do that, he has, in the bigger games, he has shrunk down. It's just the way that it is. He hasn't elevated his game and played up to par when they play against the best teams. And he needs to do that. He needs to show that. And he hasn't. He hasn't been that guy to really step up. And in all honesty, if you want the big money and you want to be that guy, you need to step up. I think Jerry Jones has stepped up and said, listen, I want you. I want you on my team. I'm going to throw that franchise tag on you. And nobody else is bitten. None of those other teams have really bitten on anything with him or that with it too. Or when I look at this, I think that, where it's sitting, Dak, it's kind of in your ball court. And the thing is that I like Dak. I think he's a really, really stand-up guy. He's a class act. He's one of those guys that you definitely can rally around. I think that when it comes to playing on the field, he needs to step up his game. I think he's an all right leader. But when it comes to those big games, when they need him to step up and win a big game against a good team, he just hasn't. And that's just where it sits. And now, granted, he's still, I think he still has upside to him. I think he is, the thing that's really nice about Dak Prescott is he doesn't turn the ball over much, and he doesn't make bad throws. But that also hurts him because he doesn't necessarily take the chances that some other quarterbacks possibly would, to where, you need that guy that can make those 3 or 4, throws and take those shots in those bigger games when you need them to step up and shine, and he hasn't been that guy. So as I look at this, do I think that Andy Dalton is going to come in here and take Prescott's spot? No. I think that this is a nice thing for the Cowboys. It's a nice situation for them. And listen, it's kind of one of those things to where we don't know what the season is going to look like, what it's going to be. So if something were to happen, let's say to Dak, and let's say Dak would, test positive. And so what happens is then he is out for 2 weeks at least. And, and maybe more if things were to happen, and you need a starting quarterback. Well, good thing that they had Andy Dalton, who can come in there, start for 2 or 3 games, and keep the team moving and rolling and not lose anything. So I think that that's a huge deal, and it's a huge thing for them with that. So as I look at that, this is really a nice deal for everybody. And when in Andy Dalton's shoes, listen, this is a good spot for him. It's a place for him to be around home. It's just a year. And next year, there's going to be some things up in the air. They're already starting to see things in motion with, some of the older quarterbacks who could not be in the league anymore. And, Dalton, he's had 9 years in the league. He's still got some years left that he could really play, and especially for some of those teams that need a quarterback. So when he goes into free agency next year, it'll look really nice for him, and that with it. So I think all around this is a good deal. I think that Dallas really has actually been doing a decent job this offseason, everything considering with that. And I think that they're going to have a really solid team, and they're going to be, which they always are, top up there as one of the teams to take the East. But I really do think that, they've got a really nice shot this year. We'll see how things go with McCarthy, and more, and how they're going to run, that offense and that with it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't think there's anything crazy going on here. It was a good deal for Dallas. It was a good deal for Andy Dalton, and it worked out for everybody. And so, I think that they did a great job with that. I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. Oh, I wanted to take a second out, and I wanted to address something that I didn't say in the video, but I think it's going to come up. And that is that the NFL, they have removed the international games for this season. I think that that's a good thing. It's a good move. Listen, it keeps people safe. We just don't know what's going on, and it keeps them to where they in a place where they can have control, and two, it helps to really keep things congruent throughout the season and not have to worry about all the extra travel and all that's going on with that, especially if they're deciding to condense the season down and not have a bye week. NFL, I think it's a good decision. All right, let's get back into the video. Let's go ahead and now let's move on to the second thing we need to talk about, and that is the NFL 2020 schedule. That's planned to come out on the 7th. It seems to be that they're all ready to go and that they're ready to get the schedule out there. And, I don't know. We'll see how they release it and what they say. Will help us kind of determine what the league is thinking they're going to be able to do as things go forward. As we're looking at the schedule, it's interesting. There's been a lot of things floating around. There was an article, I'm going to put it down in the description, of how, amidst all of what's going on, how the Miami Dolphins were going to look at, possibly getting fans in the stands. And, when you look at it, they roughly can seat about anywhere between 65,000 people in their stadium. And they're looking at that would be trimmed down. They can trim it down to like 10, 15,000 people and still keep, that proper social distancing amount. And so as we're kind of looking, at that with it, and, they're talking about, like, you have assigned time, you come in, and you then, it's kind of like boarding a plane type of a thing. Okay, these rows can now leave. Okay, now your row can leave, and kind of trying to do it that way. I don't know. I think that it's all crazy. I don't know how you're actually going to be able to do that, and you still have a whole bunch of people from all these different communities all coming together, which right now, currently where we're at, is still considered fairly risky. So, the whole fan thing is another story. Whether or not we can get some games, we'll see with that. I think that there's a larger possibility of us actually having games than actually having fans in the stands. I just don't see fans happening with sports this year like that. So that's kind of where I'm, sitting on that. Like I said, that whole article with the Dolphins, I'll put it down, a link down in the description. It's kind of an interesting read. It definitely is showing that they're trying everything that they can. Right now, for the NFL, they're just kind of sitting on wait because they haven't really been affected. Now, granted, a lot of their, off-season stuff has kind of been affected. The teams getting together, guys being able to work with one another, new coaches getting their playbooks out to guys, being able to work with the teams and actually players being able to implement these plays, figure things out to do that. There's that type of a thing that's going on. But really, when it comes to disrupting a lot of their, their financial flow and things of that nature, there hasn't been a lot of that yet. And as we go on, we're going to start to see some of that stuff, and we'll start to see how that's affecting things and where, all of that sits. It'll be interesting to see, in the upcoming months, how that affects things. But that's kind of where we're sitting. So here in a couple days, we'll get the schedule. We'll see how that all shuffles and all out, and with that, and, maybe we'll cover that too. Hey, so yeah, back here. Just got done running 3 miles, and got 2 more miles to go to get back home. But I figured I'd just stop and take a moment. So yeah, this is kind of the scenery where I run, kind of outside, and so it's nice to be out in the country, be able to get out and do these type of things. It is hard on your feet though. One of the things that I learned when I actually started running is that it's going to beat up your body, believe it or not, especially out on the road. Running beats up your body, and so it's kind of one of those things that was kind of funny. I ended up, before I used to just, I like tennis shoes, I'll buy running shoes. So if I liked them, decent price, I would buy them. Whereas I found that I need to do a little bit better job in that, so I still get deals, I still wait for things to come on sale and things, and I might wait for last year's model to come on sale and that with it. But your shoes make a big difference, because as you start to run and the more you run, I haven't been running outside and I can tell, because like I said, my feet and my calves just are all achy right now. It tells me I haven't been out on the road. So I'm trying to get out on the road a little bit more, so I can build up the toughness. But yeah, so it's kind of crazy with that. So just kind of a couple tips for you. If you're going to start running, make sure you have decent shoes. The second thing is understand that it's going to beat you up when you first start running, especially outside. So one way that I found to push myself is that if you run in one direction, you know that you've always got to go back. So however far you go out, that's only halfway. So if you only go out a mile, you got to run 2 miles, or at least go 2 miles. And what that's doing is that's building up, the stamina with your body. Because like right now, I'm not as winded as I am. My calves and my feet are cold. So I know that I need to build up. So that's just a little tidbit. Alright, guys. And that brings us to our last story of the day, and it's a sad one, and it's again one coming out of Miami and the Miami Dolphins. Head coach Don Shula had passed away at the age of 90 on May 4th. It's a sad day. The winningest coach in NFL history with 347 total wins and 33 years of head coaching, we have lost. And it's sad because we truly have lost a just a true icon and a man that was a staple and really just consistent in the football world for years. I mean, when you think about Don Shula, all you think about is winning. When you look at his illustrious career with both the Baltimore Colts and with the Miami Dolphins, he had a total over 33 years of coaching, 2 seasons that he had where he had a losing record. Every other season, he was either 500 or better. That's saying a lot. That's saying a lot about really his longevity. That's saying a lot about his coaching ability, his ability to adapt. If you remember, he is the only coach to go through a whole complete season and win the Super Bowl and go undefeated. It's still something to this day that is still revered and something that hasn't been duplicated. Yeah, that 1972 Dolphins team. And the crazy thing about it is as you look at his career, so he started his coaching career in Baltimore for the Colts. I mean, and when you think about a guy, listen to these quarterbacks that he coached. He coached Johnny Unitas, Bob Greasy, Dan Marino, 3 Hall of Fame coaches, and you can't tell me otherwise that he wasn't a big impact on those guys becoming Hall of Famers and being who they were. Now, it's really interesting. He was the head coach of the Baltimore Colts, and he won the NFL championship, and he lost that famous game to the New York Jets, and Joe Namath and Broadway Joe and all of that. When they were going into that game, they were crushing teams that year, and they went in and ended up losing, and that really what kind of a lot of people solidified the merger between the AFL and the NFL. And he was there on the sidelines, unfortunately on the losing team. The interesting thing is looking 2 years later, he now is coaching an AFL team in the Miami Dolphins. So in 1970, he goes over to the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Miami Dolphins, before he gets there, they had 3 wins on the season. They were like 3-10 the year before he gets there. He flips that around and ends up in going 10-4 in his first season. And then in his second season, they make it to the Super Bowl. So they go 10-3 in his second season. They make it to the Super Bowl and lose to Dallas. The next year is the 1972 team that goes undefeated. They win the Super Bowl. Not only after that, he goes in and at 12-2 goes in and wins the Super Bowl again. And then the next year they go ahead and they lose in the AFC Championship game against the Raiders. But when you look at that, I mean, that's taking a team that was a losing team and a really bad team and turning them into Super Bowl champs in 3 years. That's crazy. And back-to-back Super Bowl champs. Just like that, turning it on. That's just something. I mean, when you look at his career, and I mean, from 1970 to 1995. 26 years as the head coach. I mean, and through all that, think of that, 1970, and then you think of 1995, all of the evolving that the game had done in that time period. And for him to stay at the top of his game throughout all of that is just crazy. I mean, throughout that 26-year period, he only has 2 losing seasons throughout the whole thing. And one was a 6-10 season, and the other one was a 6-8 season. So we're not talking about like terrible teams. We're talking about teams that, you know how it goes. A few things here and there, and they're 500-ish. I mean, that's how it is. So I mean, it's crazy. Now, when he looked back on his career, he always said that his biggest regret was that he wasn't able to win a Super Bowl with Dan Marino. And you remember how it goes. They go to the Super Bowl, and they ended up playing the San Francisco 49ers and getting beat by the 49ers in the Super Bowl. And as they say it, the rest is history. They continued on and never really kind of made it back there. But I just kind of wanted to touch on that. And the neat thing is that he was a guy that was kind of part of that whole NFL, AFL merger thing. And so as we're kind of looking at things, again, I go back to just kind of, our whole thing is we're looking, and I'm going to continue on with the series. I'm going to be bringing you some videos on some alternatives to the XFL and to the NFL. But as we're looking at, this is a guy who really was on the forefront of that. And, I'm still convinced that not all of the league, and the leagues out there, I'm not thinking that necessarily guys are going to necessarily going to come in and compete with the NFL. But I truly think that there's enough football to go around, and I love the fact that we got to talk about a guy who's really on the cusp in the forefront of really being innovative in football, and throughout his whole career really kind of understood the game, where the game was going, and really stayed up with the game and really stayed on top of the game the whole time. And so as we're looking at this and that, take that with you in that, and my prayers and thoughts go out to his family. I mean, that's a great loss, not just for us football fans, and losing a great innovator of the game, but more importantly to his family out there. So my heart, my thoughts, and my prayers go out to you in this time that you guys are grieving. And thank you, because I know that you as the family needed to make a lot of sacrifices so that we could have to see some great football. And see the game that we love. And so thank you for your sacrificing your family member to allow us to have some football. This is a quick public service announcement to let every one of you know that this Sunday is Mother's Day. So to all you guys out there and gals that have those special women in your lives, you need to remember that you've only got a few days left to get something. So get your act together, get off your rear end, get out there and make it happen. Get something, do something, I don't know, whatever it is, just do something to show your love and your affection for those women in your lives that have really made a difference. And to all you mothers out there, early happy Mother's Day. All right, let's get back in the video. So I just kind of want to go over those things today. I really do appreciate you listening in. Hopefully you found something you like. Let me know down in the comments what you think as well, and give me your thoughts about it. And that's really all we have for today. All right. Well, everyone, you stay safe out there and keep up the hope. Have a good night. Bye.